Well, morena, everybody. Welcome to our first council meeting for this triennium in a substantive sense. Lovely to see you all here today. Small but perfectly formed number of us, I'd just like to say. But before we commence today's agenda in a formal capacity, I'd like to invite Takina to open with a karakia. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, excuse me. Everybody have your agenda before you. The first matter is apologies. I have apologies from councillors Gower and Andrew Brown, and obviously apologies for councillors-elect Philip Coles and Mike Pettit. You're happy to move that for me? Thank you, Lou. And sorry, Liz. Seconded Bruce. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Moving then on to disclosure of members' interests. Does anybody have any today? I'm not aware of there being any. No, excellent. Skipping on then to late items. Again, I'm not aware of there being any late items. Seems all tickety-boo. Perfect. So that takes us obviously to the confirmation of the order of the meeting. No changes to the best of my knowledge. You'll move that for me, Lou. Claire will second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So look, just before we launch into some of the more substantive items on our agenda, I just wanted to thank elected members and staff who've committed so willingly and fully to our induction sessions over the last few weeks. I'm quite certain that that'll stand us in really good stead going forward to make really good decisions together as a team for the next 3 years. I also want to thank elected members for their support in terms of personally, as I find my feet, and in particular members who have so willingly attended functions on behalf of council to sort of fly the Waipa flag. Which I think it's really crucial that we do that a lot more to strengthen our relationships with our communities. And this is something that I'm quite keen for us to focus on as we go forward. So for that, I thank you. So busy 3 years ahead, so let's rip into it. So the next item is confirmation of the minutes appearing in our agenda from our last meeting, which was our inaugural meeting. They appear there. So as is our usual practice, I will just cite the page numbers, and if you've got an issue, yell out at me and we will address it. Pages 8 and 9, 10, 11. It's taking a while to think to get to page 12, 12, and 13. Nothing? Excellent. I'm happy to move those from the chair as being true and correct. And Claire, you'll second that. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Wonderful. On then to our next item, which is the council and committee meeting dates for November and December. You will have all received a large number of invites for next year, but these relate to this year and this year alone. So we have to confirm those as they appear there. Oh, use of council seal. I'm way ahead of myself. Sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Use of council seal and delegated authority during the interim period. That's one of yours, Gary.
Thank you, Your Worship. So whilst we didn't have a council, I had delegated authority to exercise your decisions, particularly in relation to contracts. So the first matter that appears there is the building control officer, which is civil staff delegation. But then we had those issues around the spaces renewal development. So there was an increase in the contract sum, and that was for a playground in growth cell T8, which wasn't in the original contract. So effectively that took the entire contract over the $1 million threshold for a range of playground developments. Then there was the extension to the Centennial Park. You'll recall the skate park opening, and we made a call because this was a matter that was beyond the contractor's ability to deliver, to extend the contract on the actual skate park development so that we could get that car park formed in time for the opening, and it was cost effective. And finally, we have an MEIT deed of guarantee. That's simply the overdraft that council has guaranteed for quite some time now, and we rolled that over. So that's a $100,000 loan guarantee.
Excellent. Any questions there for Gary on that? No. So you'll see there is a recommendation on page 15 to, 14 to accept, receive that schedule.
Yep.
Roger's happy to move. Claire will second. I'll put the motion, and all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to our council and committee meeting dates for the rest of the year. Joe, did you want to present this, or you're comfortable just with it? Speaks for itself. Yeah. Obviously the schedule appears there. Our inbox have been hammered with ones for next year, but this just relates to the ones leading up to the end of this year. Any discussion on that? Claire?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's the Preongi Award Committee meeting. That's the last one. We usually meet on a Wednesday, and I just wondered why it had been changed to a Thursday. That's all.
There's just been a change with the dates for the Tiamu Community Board, so to avoid the clash.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's contacted the members of that committee to see whether or not they're available on a Thursday. I guess they are, but yeah. Okay. Would it be possible to give those members a bit more extra notice that the date's been changed from Wednesday to Thursday?
We can get an email out this morning.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
My understanding, it was changed because the Te Awamutu Community Board members, particularly the council representatives, have a bit of a grueling day if it happens to be I think it's SPNP day, I think, as I recall, on those Tuesdays. So it can be 9 hours in the building, gets a bit much. So great. On that basis, do I have somebody who's happy to move that for me? Claire, you will. Lou will second it. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Next item, yours too, Joe. Council committee and committees and appointments. I will leave it to you to speak to your report. Thank you.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to present the committee structure that's been decided upon by the Mayor. So that's in Appendix 1, and also to consider other appointments to both internal and external groups. So the Mayor has set up the committees, including the membership and the chairs and the deputy chairs. And we've also got in there joint committees. You might see with some of them, they are, if established, that relates to the regional council committee meetings, because they're not committee structure, because they're not actually having their meetings to set their committee structure to about 2 days' time. There are a few changes that I am proposing that have arisen as a result of the changes that have happened since the agenda was issued. So if I can just get that up on the screen, I'll just walk you through those. So the first one there you can see on the screen, that was actually in relation to the delegations to the Regulatory Committee. there was one of the delegations that got missed out in the report when it was produced, so that relates to the Food Act. So that's there. That's the same delegation that was in there last time. So I shouldn't present any surprises. Yeah. There's a change there to the Nowai Waipa Co-Governance Forum. So the change there is to change that from Councillor Stolwick to Councillor Dewling. That's actually the Maniapoto JMA committee that's set up with the regional council. And so that means therefore the JMA with Maniapoto comes out because it was a double up. Here is an extra councillor on the Creative Communities Fund. So Councillor Gordon is proposed to sit on that one as well. And an extra councillor down there on the Akuaki PSG. So Councillor Montgomery is gone on that one. And that is all of the changes. Does anyone have any questions on the changes or the report?
It doesn't seem to be the case. Councillor Sterling, you're comfortable with sitting on that money portal JMA? I know that there was a double up and I didn't get around to you're comfortable with that. You had been on one of them. That was the double up. So cool. Excellent. Just checking. Okay. Great. Well, that being the case, obviously the recommendation doesn't change. You've just amended the.
That is the recommendation.
Okay.
Sorry, that's the recommendation that I've just gone through on the screen. So those were the changes that I have been made to the recommendations that were highlighted and read. Is everyone clear on what those were?
Okay, comfortable. So do I have somebody who's happy to move that for me? Bruce is going to move it. Takina will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Excellent. Thank you, Joe. And the next one is yours too, I believe. Yeah. Elected member remuneration.
Right. So the purpose of this paper is to set out your allocation for the governance pool for consideration by the Remuneration Authority. So the total amount of the money determined is that we have to spend in the governance pool is actually set by the Remuneration Authority. That is not a decision of council. Only thing you have a say in is how that governance pool is split up. So what happens is we make a recommendation to the Remuneration Authority, or as a result of today, they have a look at it, they consider it, they see if it looks okay, and then if it does, they're happy with it, then it will appear in the determination that will be issued before Christmas. So this is just really one step in the process in terms of determining the rem that's paid out of the governance pool. We have been able to do things a bit differently this time. You've just adopted the new committee structure, so you've got some new roles that have come to the fore with your deputy chair. Because we actually ended up, the Remuneration Authority put some extra funding, allocated extra funding in the pot for us of about 70,000 last time for us to spend, and that coupled with the fact that you reduced your councillors down by 2 as a result of the representation review, means that this is really kind of the first time that you actually have had more money to spend across the different responsibilities. Before, it's been quite limited in the pool that you've had, so you've really only been able to provide extra remuneration for the deputy mayor and the committee chairs, because there was no extra funding to spare. So it's great this time that we've had this opportunity to allocate responsibility for different roles. One of the requirements you'll see in the recommendation, we need to provide when you make the vote, is that we include in the recommendation a brief description of those roles. So they are included in there in recommendation B, all the different functions. Just want to note, when you get towards the end of the recommendation, there's an error in there. So when you get to down at the bottom of page 4 of the report, Deputy Committee Chair, that should be Councillor Mike Pettit. And then when you go over leaf to Deputy Committee Chair, Quarterly Committee, that should be Councillor Roger Gordon. And it is portfolio responsibility together with the Chair for the activity of the Audit and Risk Committee. It should be in line with the report that you just adopted. Has anyone got any questions about that?
Lou?
Just a quick question. With civil defence, do I just continue to go and just charge? I don't get paid for any of the time there, but do I just have charge the actual hours of travelling and parking?
Yeah, just the mileage and parking. That's the same with, because as far while there has been an increase to the remuneration, obviously there's not enough to remunerate for all of the different things that you are involved in. So there was kind of key areas that have been pulled out that are kind of mainly linked with those council committees.
It was just simply that I think the adjustment to the parking was a good one because the cost of that gets quite high.
Yes, no, it's
over periods
pretty.
of time.
When any elected member is attending anything on council business, you are eligible for us to claim for the parking.
And obviously the other significant change in terms of the structure or the remuneration relates to remunerating elected members who sit on the community boards on our behalf or on behalf of council, being a fairly onerous responsibility. So I felt it was fair to acknowledge that time commitment undertaken by those members. So there being no further discussion, I'm happy to move, as I'm obviously the only person not benefiting from this. Do I have anybody happy to second for me? Lou, you will. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. So that takes us to tab 11, top risks and risk appetite statement. We've got George. Morning, George. Nice to see you.
Thank you. So there's 2 documents on the agenda for endorsement today. And I just wanted to cover off a few contextual points before it gets opened up for questions. So these 2 documents, the top risks and the risk appetite statement, are key parts of our risk management framework. And they're designed to help with decision making and ensure a consistent approach to risk management across the organisation. These documents were developed in collaboration with senior leadership and the Audit and Risk Committee just recently, and we're now bringing them through to you for endorsement. So just for context in regards to the top risk document, it was developed, I guess, acknowledging the fact that we're in a really volatile environment at the moment. So we acknowledge that those risks and these settings are likely to change over the course of the year and potentially quite quickly as the environment changes around council. And you can see that particularly around the volatility around the labour market and supply chain, etc. We expect that to change quite quickly. That volatility did drive the lifting of a number of risks this year. So in the top risk document, some of the levels of risk are much higher than they were last year because of that environment. Just in regards to that volatility, I guess, and the continual review of them. So each quarter during ARC, there is an opportunity to discuss those risks and the risk settings and just understand if they need to be changed, considering what's happening in the external environment. And each of these top risks also undergo a deep dive at least once a year, where we really get down into the level of detail with the risk owner in regards to the effectiveness of the mitigants, etc., associated with those risks. You'll see on page 46 of the agenda that we have a heat map, which is looking at where our risks are sitting now and where we desire them to go. And you'll see in most instances that we are looking to drive the residual risk level down with actions that we've identified. One of the other key points I wanted to raise in regards to these documents was on page 47 of the agenda is looking at the interdependencies of our risks. So I guess what that's saying is we can't look at these risks independently. We need to look at them in the context and how they're influencing each other. And you can see that really clearly between staff capability and capacity and delivery of the Capital Works program, where they're both emitters and receivers and they're heavily influencing each other and those other risks in our risk portfolio. The other part it outlines for each top risk is where our target risk is and where we want to drive it to. As I'll make a couple of statements around the risk appetite statement, but in some instances that target risk is not in line with what is outlined in the risk appetite statement, because it's looking at driving potentially down to appetite over time, depending on what resources we have available. So we can't often jump from one level to another as quickly as we would like. And then you'll also see that those planned actions that are trying to drive that risk down towards target are taken directly out of yearly business plans. And what that's illustrating, I guess, is the point I'm making is that risk management framework is very much interlinked with our planning cycle. So it's all linked together. So they're probably the key points around the top risk document. In terms of the risk appetite statement, this is looking at it at a slightly different lens. It's looking at it at a portfolio level rather than at a top risk. And for that reason, you will see that there may be, as I just said before, some differences between what we're targeting for that 12-month period and what our actual appetite as a council is. A good example of that is around our climate change risk, where we have an appetite of moderate. But for this year, we're really targeting for our top risk high, and the year prior was very high. So as we have resources and work programs in place, we drive those levels of risk closer to where our appetite is. So that's kind of the summary, the points I wanted to raise. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks, George. Claire.
Yeah, thanks. I was on the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, before the election, and I did raise about the design of that risk appetite statement. Yeah, because that first one's a bit confusing. I thought that might have been, picking up that. Yeah, because is there a plan to change the design so that it's clearer that the first column is really describing the general risk, and then the more specific ones are sort of the next column over?
Yeah, it is clear. So we've taken that feedback on board and we will look to make those changes next time. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And also just on the design, if we could have that slider rather than a horizontal one, have it vertically, it would give you more room in the columns so that they're not so lengthy or something, but that's up to you, I guess. Yeah, but thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, thanks, George. It was nice reading this, following along your logic and what you've just described. I understand, and don't want to cause trouble on my first day. But when I read the risk appetite statement, it slightly surprised me. First of all, I was really pleased to see that we had an enterprise risk management framework. Thought that was great. And I thought it was really great how it was presented with the strategy, because I think it's really clear that they do sit side by side, that they're key sort of, governance type documents for this organisation. But the risk appetites did strike me as high, because I've seen them in the corporate world and they are not expressed that high in general. And I'll just pick a couple of examples to illustrate my point. And just before I go there, in the corporate world, the enterprise risk management frameworks are common, and in their governance statements, they half report them. They'll report the risks and their mitigants, but they hardly ever report their risk appetite, citing commercial sensitivity. But one that I hunted through on the weekend through a bunch of corporate reports to try and get one, the Warehouse Group Limited do. They actually report their risk appetites, and I think it'll probably support what I'm saying, that in the corporate world, they're generally lower. And the two I'll pick on are what I'll call the staff risk in broad terms, where I believe we've got set here, what is it? Inadequate staffing is sort of identified as the risk, and we've got our appetite set for that as very high. And by way of comparison, and I'll keep referring to the warehouse just because it's the only one I could find, they have that set at low. Now, when I think about these documents aren't trying to eliminate risk. Risks everywhere. They're a document so everyone understands the risks, understands where we're asking Gary to position this organisation. And I just thought, well, if you're saying that we're happy for this business or this organisation to be set up where the risk of staff becoming a serious problem, we're happy to accept a very high appetite for that happening. I thought, really? It strikes me that you are kind of setting up an organisation to fail. So that was the first one that struck me. Second one, I've called the health and safety risk, where it's set in here, particularly in the top report. I'll grant you that. So as a medium appetite, I don't believe there would be any corporate prepared to put in paper, especially that they're prepared to accept a medium risk in any time frame for health and safety. That pretty much the only acceptable appetite there is low, given the nature of the legislation we're working under. So the general comment I'm making is that I thought they were kind of highish. I give you those two examples. And finally, I think for these to work as a really good corporate governance type document, you don't want to sort of be artificially massaging the risks. Like if you can't make it, you can't make it. That's fine. But the risk statement, the appetite is sort of this broad strategic thing. That's where we think this organisation should operate. This is where it currently is. Here's the mitigations. I've got it here. There's still quite a big shortfall. That's something we all need to know. And that means we understand that we're taking a risk here. So again, I refer to the warehouse. They have a couple where they're miles out from their target, their stated risk appetite. But I'll imagine that that's something that the board and the CE are constantly thinking about, talking about. And I just think it's really good that that's sitting there, that's a risk, that we are outside our appetite. What are we doing about it? And that's sort of constantly thinking about it. And it informs all your decisions. That's me.
Thanks, Mike. George, did you want to respond to that at all?
No, I absolutely welcome those comments. It's great to have it examined with a fresh pair of eyes. I guess my comment would be that I think, so what I'm hearing you saying is you're thinking we're sitting a bit high in terms of where we are, and potentially we're not illustrating the gap as well as we could be, is what I'm hearing. I guess my recommendation would be that as we present the quarterly risk report through to ARC on the 5th, that we actually have another decent discussion around where these risks are sitting. This isn't certainly not a done deal for the year in terms of, I think that volatility around us illustrates the fact that we need to be actively managing it and resetting it as we need to. So perhaps that's an opportunity for us to have another discussion and then report back to council in December around if those settings were changed through that discussion. The other thing that I would add too is that the ARC meeting gives a really good opportunity around that risk 1 and 9, where the risk owner is actually going to be leading a deep dive into those two risks. So they could be explored quite a lot in that forum as well to inform if we need to reset any of those.
Excellent. And of course, Councillor Mike's on ARC, so yeah. We'll have some discussions then, no doubt. Fantastic. Okay. Are there any other comments? Claire, did you have your finger up there?
Not really. I think it's great to have the perspectives of new councillors, and especially from other sectors. Actually, it's really good. I mean, a council business has more constraints on attracting staff than corporates do. And they're specialised roles as well, some of the ones that we are concerned about. I'm really comfortable with the whole sort of enterprise framework that allows those deep dives and that. I mean, we are, mindful of those risks and always getting feedback on them all the time. Yeah, but great discussion, Mike. Thanks very much.
Agreed. Lou?
I consider what you said quite carefully, Mike, and as I say, across the road through your chair. I do feel that mitigation is the biggest issue that we focus on. I do know that the appetite for risk is more aspirational. It's what we want to achieve or would like to achieve. I personally feel that most of you, George, you've actually put it quite high, and I agree we're in a very, very uncertain period. And it's very hard to draw lines at the current point in time with the current economy and the way everything's going. And we're facing a lot of legislation and changes out there that can impact inadvertently and quite often quite heavily on our operation. So in due reference to you, I agree with, in the corporate world, I've sat in the corporate world myself, so I do know what you're saying, but we do have commercial sensitivities. We are a public body here. So really, we've got to start saying that we do have a line in the sand, and we should have that public out there. It's a bit different in the corporate world because you're financially bound to present your figures for your own company. Just my thoughts anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Tākina.
Kia ora, thank you for that. I just wanted to make note of around page 53, around failure to give effect to tiriti or Waitangi and build successful mana whenua and iwi partnerships. I'm glad that it's on there because it certainly is a risk for any council in the country, given we had a meeting with a number of government entities last Tuesday, and what struck me as a point of importance was that every one of them had iwi relationships, and strengthening those iwi and mana whenua relationships as being their top priority. And I think it is a good thing for our council to show leadership around our appetite, if you will, around increasing our mana whenua and iwi partnership and relationship building. And I can't wait to see some of these planned additional mitigations that are to happen during our term. I'm certainly excited by the prospect of seeing these changes, these mitigations implemented throughout our time on council. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Any other further comments from anybody? I think it's been pretty well discussed. So I shall just take us back to the recommendation, which appears on page 40, I think it is, I have there, to receive the report and to endorse the top risks document and the risk appetite statement. Document numbers are listed there. Somebody, Claire, you'll move that for me. Liz will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thanks, George and Jenny. I think we'll just push on. We're ahead of time, breakneck speed, to the next one, which is Council Delegations Update, November 2022. Diana, good morning. Nice to see you. This is obviously tab 12 in our agenda.
Morena, Your Worship and elected members. I will take my paper as read, but I'll just highlight the key point, which is basically we're seeking delegations to staff and commissioners for powers relating to section 37, which is about waiving irregularities in documentation, and also to delegate additional powers to the role of a district plan team leader. And just for the benefit of our new elected members, just to explain why this paper is being set today, when statutory powers are given to the council, they're given to the council, as in this room, the elected members. And so in order for staff to exercise those powers, they have to be delegated to those staff. Normally we delegate them to the chief executive, who then sub-delegates to individual staff as needs be. But for resource management powers, you can't sub-delegate, so the council has to delegate them directly to staff themselves. So that's why papers like this often come up for resource management functions, in order that staff can exercise those powers.
Great, thanks for that explanation, Diana. Does anybody have any questions for Diana in terms of her report and any of the recommendations that appear on page 82 there? No, lots of shaking heads. Everybody's comfortable with that. So we have the recommendation to not only receive Diana's report, but to delegate the pursuant to the Resource Management Act, those various functions appearing in 1, 2, and 3, and then approving an update to the delegations register accordingly. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Liz will second it. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Wonderful. Thanks, Diana. Reasonably painless. We are so ahead of time. We're amazing. Did we want to break briefly for 10, 15 minutes and then we can come back? Should we move the resolution to exclude the public and then we can come back straight into it? So tab 13 has a resolution to exclude the public on the various grounds set out in that resolution. My machine is taking forever to turn the page. So that's on page 111. So if we move into public excluded now, it means we can have a break and crack straight into it when we come back. Claire, you're going to move for me. Lou, you're happy to second? I'll put the motion.